The Stranger in the Storm. The snow fell thick and heavy that December night, coating Highway 47 pulgadas, a blanket of wet that seemed to swallow all sound. Jaque Morrison gripped the steering wheel of his aging yellow truck, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. The heater wheezed and rattled, barely keeping the cold at bay, but Jake didn't mind. They'd driven this route 1,000 times, hauling freight between small towns that most people had never heard of. At 42, Jake had grown comfortable with solitude. His truck was his home, the endless highway his companion. Years ago, he'd had a family waiting for him at the end of each route. A wife. A daughter. But life had a way of taking things away, piece by piece, until all that remained was the road and the steady hum of the engine. Tonight, the storm was worse than he'd expected. The weather report had warned of light flurries, but this was something else entirely. Visibility was dropping fast, and Jake knew he should find a place to pull over and wait it out. But he was close to his destination, just another 30 miles, and he'd always been stubborn about finishing what he started. That's when he saw her. At first, she was just a shape in the swirling snow, a pale figure standing on the shoulder of the road. Jake's foot instinctively moved to the brake, and the truck slowed with a groan. As he drew closer, his headlights illuminated a young woman with platinum blonde hair, her thin dress completely inadequate for the weather. In her arms, she clutched a small bundle wrapped in a cream-colored blanket. A baby. Jack's heart lurched. He pulled the truck to a stop and rolled down his window. The cold air hit him like a slap. "Ma'am," he called out. "Are you all right?" The woman turned toward him, and even through the falling snow, Jake could see the desperation in her bright blue eyes. She was shivering violently, her lips tinged with blue. She took a hesitant step toward the truck. "Please," she said, her voice barely audible over the wind. "Please help us. My car broke down miles back. I've been walking for so long. My baby, she's so cold." Jaque didn't hesitate. He pushed open the passenger door and climbed down from the cab. "Get in," he said firmly. "Quick now, before you both freeze." The woman hurried to the truck, moving carefully on the icy ground. Jaque helped her up into the passenger seat, then climbed back behind the wheel. He cranked up the heater as high as it would go and pulled back onto the road, driving slowly through the storm. In the dim light of the cab, Jake got his first good look at his passengers. The woman was young, probably in her mid-20s, with delicate features and hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. But it was the exhaustion in her face that struck him most. She looked like someone who had been running for a very long time. The baby in her arms stirred, letting out a small whimper. The woman adjusted the blanket, revealing a cherubic face and wide, curious eyes. The child couldn't have been more than a year old. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "Thank you so much." He thought. He didn't know what I was going to do. "What's your name?" Jaque asked, keeping his eyes on the road. There was a pause, just long enough to be noticeable. "Emma," she said finally. "I'm a Clark. And this is Lily." "I'm Jack." Jaque Morrison. He glanced at her briefly. "There's a town about 20 miles up ahead. A motel, a garage. We can get you sorted out there." Emma nodded, pulling Lily closer. "I don't know how to thank you." "No need," Jake said gruffly. Anyone would do the same. But even as he said it, Jake knew it wasn't entirely true. Plenty of drivers would have passed right by, too focused on their own journey to notice a stranger in need. He'd done it himself more times than he cared to admit, back when the pain was too fresh and he'd wanted nothing to do with other people's problems. They drove in silence for a while, the only sounds the rumble of the engine and the whisper of snow against the windshield. Jaque found his mind drifting to his own daughter, Sophie. She would have been 23 now, if she'd lived. The cancer had taken her when she was just 16, and the grief had driven a wedge between Jake and his wife until there was nothing left to salvage. "You have children, Jake?" Emma's soft voice broke through his thoughts. The question caught him off guard. Edith. "A daughter. She passed away some years back." I'm so sorry. Emma's voice was gentle, full of genuine sympathy. That must have been unbearable. Jack's throat tightened. It was. Still is, some days. Emma shifted Lily in her arms, and the baby reached up to touch her mother's face. Children are precious, Emma said quietly. They're everything. Something in her tone made Jake look at her more closely. In the dashboard lights, he could see tears glistening in her eyes. You running from something, Emma? The question came out before he could stop it. She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Running to something, actually. A new life. A safe life. For Lily. Jack nodded slowly. He didn't press for details. Everyone had their reasons, their secrets. The road had taught him that much. They reached the town of Millbrook just after midnight. The storm had eased slightly, and Jake pulled into the parking lot of the Silver Pine Motel. The neon sign flickered weakly, casting pink and blue shadows on the snow. Wait here, Jake said. I'll see about getting you a room. But before he could open his door, Emma reached out and touched his arm. Jake, I need to tell you something. I haven't been entirely honest with you. Jack turned to face her, his expression guarded. Go on. Emma took a deep breath. My name is Emma Clark, at parts true. But what I didn't tell you is that 3 days ago, I was living in a shelter for women and children. I left everything behind, a bad situation. I've been trying to get to my sister's place in Montana. She's the only family I have left, the only person I trust. She paused, her voice breaking. When my car died tonight, I thought it was over. I thought Lily and I would freeze out there. But then you stopped. You saved us. Jack felt something shift in his chest. He looked at Emma, at baby Lily, and saw not strangers but fellow survivors, people who had been knocked down by life but were still fighting to stand back up. Listen, he said slowly. Montana's on my route. I'm heading that way anyway. If you want, I can take you to your sister's place. It'd be safer than trying to travel alone with the baby. Emma's eyes widened. You would do that? But you don't even know me. Maybe that's exactly why I should, Jake said. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, the first genuine smile he'd felt in months. Besides, this truck's got plenty of room. And I could use the company. Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. Thank you, Jake. Thank you for seeing us. For caring. As Jake started the truck again and pulled back onto the highway, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years, purpose. The snow continued to fall, but the road ahead seemed a little clearer now, a little brighter. Sometimes, he thought, the people we're meant to help are the ones who help us in return, simply by letting us be there for them. In the passenger seat, Emma hummed softly to Lily, and the baby's eyes drifted closed. And for the first time since he'd lost his daughter, Jake Morrison felt like he was finally heading home.